Today we're going to look at the story of Abraham. Abraham was told by God to leave his father's house, his homeland, and to travel where God would show him. And instantly he responded and travelled from upper Mesopotamia down to the land that we call the Holy Land, the land of Israel. And he took with him his wife, who was Sarah and was very, very beautiful, and his nephew, who was called Lot, and they travelled as God had instructed them to. Now, the fundamental question surrounding Abraham is, how will God fulfill the promises he made to him? Because God said to Abraham, look at the stars, and in the Holy Land, when there's no electricity, because we're in the ancient world, the stars would have been gleaming and looked as if there were millions upon millions of them, something we don't really see in our country because of so much light pollution. But God said, your descendants, your children and their children's children, there will be as many as the stars in heaven. Or if you played on the beach, think of the amount of sand there is just in one bucketful of sand on the beach as you're making a sandcastle. Well, God said to Abraham, your descendants, your children and the children's children will be as many as the grains of sand on the seashore, millions upon millions of them. That was God's promise. But there was a bit of a problem, because Sarah, Abraham's beautiful wife, could not have any children. So how can you have children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren when you can't even make a beginning? So the story of Abraham is, how will God fulfill his promise? Now, I mentioned that Abraham had a nephew called Lot, and in the ancient world you could leave all your belongings to your nephew. Perhaps that's what God meant. But then Abraham and Lot have to part their ways because they're just too successful as farmers, and Lot disappears from the story. So that's not the exact solution. And then Abraham has a servant called Eliezer of Damascus. Maybe he will inherit, because we know that people did adopt servants who would inherit everything from their master. But God says, no, it's not going to be Eliezer. Then who is it going to be? Well, Sarah's servant had a baby. His name was Ishmael. And we've been to wonder whether Ishmael won't inherit everything from Abraham and that he'll be the father of lots and lots of children. But it's not going to be Ishmael either. And then finally, after a long, long time of waiting, when Abraham is really, really old and Sarah is just nearly as old, they have a baby, as God had promised. And that baby's name is Isaac. And the name Isaac means he laughs, because when Abraham was told he was going to have a baby, he laughed because it was so ridiculous. And when Sarah was told, she laughed because it was such a silly idea, but it came about. And God fulfilled his promise. And Isaac grew up and became a young man, and then God tested Abraham. He said, Abraham, Abraham, I want you to give me Isaac as a sacrifice on the holy mountain. And Abraham didn't want to do this, but he felt he had to obey God, and so he took Isaac up the holy mountain and prepared to offer him to God as a sacrifice. When God said, Abraham, Abraham, no, don't do it. It was only a test, and now I know how much you love me. And God repeated his promise. I will give you so many descendants, there'll be more than the stars in heaven or the grains of sand on the seashore.